ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930 present The Drive.
It is Thursday, August 17th. Your drive begins now on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. We are here until 6 o'clock, and we're going to get your text in this hour, 304-396-TALK. That's 304-396-8255. As we get closer to the start of football season, looking forward to talking more with you throughout this upcoming season, and we've got college athletics already underway. Marshall's at Morehead State. Women's soccer action began at 4 o'clock, and right now we're at halftime, and there's no score yet from Morehead. So Marshall and Morehead State scoreless in the first half of play. We'll keep an eye on the scoreboard as the show continues, get you updated as either team scores, and hopefully we'll get a final before it's all said and done. But a reminder again, the text line 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Coming up a little bit later on the program, we're going to talk Ashland High School football. If you're not aware, we are now the broadcast home, Kindred Communications, for Ashland Tomcat Athletics. We, of course, will be broadcasting those games starting tomorrow on our sister station, Cat Sports 93.3 and 1340. And I'm going to be speaking with the head coach of the Ashland Tomcats football team, Chad Tackett. He'll join me coming up at a little bit after 5:30. So stay tuned for that. I'm looking forward to talking to him for the first time and welcoming him aboard, as we'll have all those Tomcat games all season long right here on our sister station, and of course, Kindred Communications, Cat Sports 93.3 and 1340. So some big news coming out of Marshall today. I think this is really interesting because we were wondering what would happen to Marshall swim and dive programs. And so Sunbelt didn't have swimming and diving. Had to become an affiliate member of the Ohio Valley. And that's fine. It's a good league. It's a good place. It's a nice landing place for swimming and diving. But the Sun Belt announcing today the return of women's swimming and diving. So it is the 20th sponsored sport for the 2023-24 season. So good news there. There are going to be 4 teams in this thing. Georgia Southern, James Madison, and Old Dominion will join Marshall. The 2024 NCAA Division I Women's Swimming and Diving Championships are going to take place in Athens, Georgia. And the Thundering Herd, of course, will not compete there won't be like an automatic bid or anything like that. You know, to qualify, individual bids to the NCAA championship are earned through qualification times and standards. So it's not as Marshall's going to take the entire swim team. So I know the question was asked today, well, there's only 4 teams, so how can the league put together a sponsored sport, only 4 teams? Well, hopefully that's in anticipation of other teams in conference joining. That's also a situation, to the best of my knowledge, to my understanding, you don't have to have, say, 6, 7, 8 teams for a situation like this, because this isn't one of those where the entire team qualifies to go to the championship. So individual players in certain sports like tennis will qualify, track and field, individual runners. In swimming, it's individual swimmers and divers. That makes sense. And that's kind of my understanding of it. So I know that question was asked a couple times to me today. Hey, how can you do this with 4 teams? Because I know you had to have a certain amount of teams to be able to put this together in soccer for the Sun Belt. And, of course, it helped that Marshall was coming in. Also, Kentucky was coming in. You had South Carolina coming in. West Virginia was coming in. You had a few teams already in the Sun Belt that sponsored soccer. So I think that this, of course, is a further push by the Sun Belt to try to establish itself as, if not the premier, one of the premier non-autonomy leagues. And really, I don't know what we're going to call them here soon. Is it going to be Group of 6? Is there going to be a 6th league join in the Pac-12? Will the Pac-12 maintain Power 5 status, and I doubt that. I don't even see how it's possible. And honestly, if you had a bingo board right now and you had your marker on Conference USA dissolving before the Pac-12, you don't win. Because it looks like Conference USA is not going anywhere anytime soon, or at least in the immediate future, whereas the Pac-12, we don't know what's going on there. And so, as it stands, it's going to be the SEC, Big Ten, Big 12, ACC, and then the autonomy schools are going to probably be just 4. The rest of the leagues, going to be the Sun Belt and the American, maybe jockeying for position. Sort of a rebranded Conference USA on one hand, and a Sun Belt that has bolstered its numbers. I really like the way the Sun Belt is operated. And this is good. This is cool. And, of course, you know what's happening at Marshall. There's been a strong push towards some of the other sports. We see a renewed push towards all of these. I don't want to say Olympic sports, but the non-revenue sports, the sports that aren't football and basketball. There's a serious push, at least on the surface, to try to bring all these programs up to a higher level, a higher caliber. There's more investment being made. I mean, we see the investment being made in track and field, and, of course, we're also seeing the investment made here with swimming and diving, especially with the Sun Belt. So there's a little bit more of a push going on to try to bring these programs up to a certain level, be a little bit more competitive. And also, it looks good on your athletic department if you are one of the upper echelon teams, you're competing for a Commissioner's Cup. I mean, that's a marker of not just your football program, but your entire athletic department's health. How well do you perform across the board? If you're in the upper echelon of schools and the league, then you can make a case for yourself. If you're a football school only, and I know a lot of these decisions are being made based on football school only mentality. Did anybody think about track and field and soccer, any of the other sports, when it came to realigning? Do you think UCLA's really thinking about anything outside of football with its other sports? You don't know. So basically, you've got schools that are willingly putting their programs on an island, sort of like West Virginia, sort of like an island all to itself in the Big 12. It gets a little bit better. Central Florida at least is same time zone. Cincinnati, that's an easy one. That's closer. But overall, nobody's really concerned about these other sports where at least I like what the Sun Belt's doing because it seems like that's the philosophy here. And so it allows you to focus more, I think. How great is it that Marshall doesn't have to focus on an extreme travel budget, maybe can focus more on putting together solid athletic departments. Now, you have to travel. Obviously, that's an expense, but you don't have to inflict wounds to yourself. You don't have to have self-inflicted wounds when it comes to putting together travel. Our text line's 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. As I mentioned, we're monitoring the match between Marshall and Morehead State, and Marshall is on the board here in the second half. So the Thundering Herd with the early 1-0 lead over Morehead State in the second. Hopefully the Herd can hold on to that and win the match. We'll keep an eye on it as it continues. Until then, we will get your text in, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Still to come, we're going to talk Ashland football, new partnership between Kindred Communications, our parent company, and the Ashland Tomcats. Chad Tackett will join me on the program a little bit later on. But until then, plenty of time for your text, as it looks like the Thundering Herd has just scored again. Thundering Herd leading Morehead State 2-0. It looked really easy. Thundering Herd off to a great start. Game 1 of its season. We'll talk more about that and get your text in when we continue on this edition of The Drive, ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Welcome back to our Thursday edition of The Drive here at ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. We're keeping an eye on the Marshall women's soccer match, starting the season off right, leading Morehead 2-0. Scoring within a couple of minutes of each other. First goal was scored by Alyssa Harden at that was the second goal. Let me get you caught up here. First goal was scored by Bailey Fisher in the 47th minute. And then in the 49th minute, Alyssa Harden scored bottom center of the goal off the left foot. So she adds to the lead. First period, Katie Porter got a yellow card. So now you're up to date. You know what's happening. So far, so good for the Marshall women's soccer team as it starts the season off right, leading 2-0 second period. That's a good start. That's what we wanted to see for Michael Swann's squad. Our text line is 304-396-8255, 304-396-TALK. That's the number to be a part of today's edition of The Drive here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Baseball action yesterday. The Reds got the win over the Guardians, splitting the two-game Ohio Cup Series. They'll face each other again in Cleveland late September. The Reds are off today, and the Guardians open up a weekend series at home tonight, 7-10 versus Detroit. Mets get the win over the Pirates yesterday. The Bucks have the day off, thankfully. Back at it tomorrow here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. And the Atlantic League, Charleston swept by Staten Island in a Wednesday doubleheader. 9-0 and 8-5 scores. The team wraps up the series tonight, 6:30 in Staten Island. Hopefully the Dirty Birds can get back on the winning track. And, of course, we've got high school football action coming up here tomorrow on our sister station, Cat Sports 93.3 and 1340, as Ashland will play host to Raceland coming up in the next few minutes. We're going to be talking with the head coach of the Ashland Tomcats, Chad Tackett. He'll join us on the program. We'll talk a little bit about the upcoming season. Of course, welcome him aboard as our new partnership between Kendrick Communications and Ashland Tomcats Athletics begins tomorrow. And if you want to listen to that game, you can follow along on Cat Sports 93.3 and 1340. Or, of course, you can go to our website, catsports933.com, and you can stream the game there. Or you can get the link to your favorite mobile devices app store. So you'll be all set there. Still keeping an eye on the Marshall-Morehead State match, 2-0 in the second. About 31 minutes remaining on the clock. So hopefully they'll get this thing finished before we go off the air, and it'll be a Herd victory, hopefully. And we'll also talk high school football with Chad Tackett in the next few minutes, so looking forward to that. And then tomorrow night, high school football getting started in Ohio and Kentucky. Also, while we're thinking about it, if you're not ready for football just yet and you want to go support the Marshall women's volleyball team, they've got one of their Fans First events. These are rebranded ways to say preseason game. And it'll be against the Ohio Bobcats on Friday, 6 p.m. So if you head on down, you can listen to the show on your way down to the Cam Henderson Center to support the Thundering Herd. So there's going to have they're going to have giveaways. They're going to have posters if you haven't got your poster yet. Free admission for all fans. They've got 9 newcomers, 21 players, 9 newcomers, and we're going to see what kind of chips on this squad's shoulder. I'd take it out in Ohio. They were picked 6th The Thundering Herd, as a unit, picked 6th in the East Division of the Sun Belt preseason poll. I would wear that on my shoulder all season long. That would definitely be something I would use as motivation. But should be fun tomorrow, and it's against Ohio. So if you're looking for someone to yell at, you can yell at people on. I mean, okay, I need to walk that back. It's volleyball. Do we want to really yell at the other team? Do we want to? I mean, football, it's one thing. I mean, we don't want to yell. Be nice. I guess I'm trying to encourage fan conduct and at the same time get after them. I'm trying to walk that line between get after them, yell at them, but be nice about it. Be polite, be cordial. Be friendly as you yell at the other team. Or better yet, just cheer for the Herd. That's the goal. Cheer for the Herd. That's what I would encourage you to do. All right, keeping an eye on the Marshall soccer match between the Herd and the Eagles. Herd still up in this one 2-0. Under 30 to go in this contest. We'll keep an eye on this as it progresses. And when we continue, we're going to talk high school football. I'm going to be speaking with the head coach of the Ashland Tomcats, Chad Tackett. First game is tomorrow. It's against Raceland. It's going to be a fun one for sure. You can listen to it on our sister station, Cat Sports 93.3 and 1340, and you can do that online at catsports933.com. We got more coming up, including conversation with Chad Tackett when we continue on this edition of The Drive. It's ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
We're taking Paul Swann everywhere. Download or subscribe to The Drive with Paul Swann on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to the Thursday edition of The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. We are efforting the head coach of the Ashland Tomcats, Chad Tackett. Just wrapping up practice, so we're going to give him another few minutes and see if we can get him back on the program with us. Until then, we'll open up the text line at 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. That's the number to be a part of today's edition of The Drive here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. We're keeping an eye on Marshall and Morehead State in women's soccer. It's the opener on the road for the Thundering Herd. And right now, the Herd leads the contest 2-0, or as soccer fans would like me to say, 2-0. Good start for the Thundering Herd. Always good to go on the road and get the victory. And if the Herd can hang on, they'll have their first win of the season. That'd be good. I'll be extremely happy for Michael Swann to get that. I know he has worked hard to try to get this program on a level that a lot of people want it to be. I know the women's soccer program has been a little bit more difficult than the men's. I'll tell you what. Yeah, you just don't walk in sometimes and win a national championship. Chris Grassi pretty much did that. Michael Swann, I know he's got a lot of expectations, but at the same time, they're looking good so far. What I've seen against Morehead, they have looked strong. So hopefully that's going to continue as they continue to lead that one 2-0. Some football news today to talk about. Cincinnati Bengals, good news there. If you have been following the Joe Mixon saga, he was found not guilty of aggravated menacing charges on a case that he was accused of pointing a gun at a woman during a downtown road rage incident on January 21st. And so today he was found not guilty of aggravated menacing charges. That's good news for him. That's also good news for the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals actually issued a statement after the verdict came out, and the Bengals said, since he joined the organization in 2017, Joe Mixon has been a valuable part of the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe has been a top-level running back with multiple 1,000-yard rushing seasons, and he has been an even better teammate, enjoying real popularity among his peers. During the past 7 years, Joe has been active with the community, and his constant smile and energy have made him a favorite among thousands of fans. That's a pretty big statement there. So 4 days proceeding, the court found Mixon not guilty of charges stemming from an alleged road rage incident. And this was before the team's playoff game against the Bills last January. So now, Mixon and the Bengals hopefully try to get this past them. However, the NFL could still possibly jump in, do its own investigation. The NFL could conduct its own investigation and then maybe issue its punishment. Mixon still has a civil lawsuit he faces. It's related to a shooting outside of his home earlier this year, despite being ruled neither the shooter or being criminally charged. Go figure. He was ruled not the shooter. He was not criminally charged, but yet we have a civil lawsuit related to the shooting because, of course, we do. I want to root for Joe Mixon. I want to root for him. It might sound a little biased of me, but I want to root for Joe Mixon. But the Bengals seem to be on board with him. I mean, that was a strong statement. Absolutely strong statement. Highlighting his tenure with the team, his popularity among his peers, his activity with the community. And I think that the Bengals definitely have got his back on this one. So they're sticking their neck out there to say, look, we are behind Joe Mixon 100%. And that's good. I think he wants to be a contributor on this team, and that's good for the Bengals as well. But the verdict is not guilty of aggravated menacing. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. We have a little over 16 minutes to go left in the contest between Marshall and Morehead State women's soccer action. The Herd on the road opening up the season, and the Thundering Herd leading the contest 2-0. And if the Herd can hang on, it will have won its opening game on the road and start the season off on the right foot. That would make a very jubilant yesterday. We talked to him yesterday, a jubilant Michael Swann, even more so as his home country in the World Cup final, and then getting this one started. He's going to be bright. He's going to be up bright and early, 6 a.m. I think he said yesterday, for that match on Sunday. He's going to focus a little bit on it. Of course, the Herd's got High Point. That's going to be the home contest for Marshall on Sunday. So women's soccer on Sunday back in Huntington, taking on High Point, hoping to come home with the victory. If they can hold on another 15 minutes or so to go, if they can hold on, they'll have that victory. Our text line is 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. That's the number to be a part of today's edition of The Drive here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. We're going to try to talk to the head coach of the Ashland Tomcats, Chad Tackett. We'll do that when we continue, if all things go well, here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
Big events. I look forward to seeing you there.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
High school football season beginning tomorrow in Kentucky, and we've got a great one to share with you. Raceland will be taking on Ashland at 7:30 p.m. tomorrow. We'll have the game for you beginning at 7 o'clock on our sister station, Cat Sports in 93.3 and 1340, as Kindred Communications and Ashland Tomcats Athletics entering into a partnership earlier this year. And we want to welcome to the program now the head coach of the Ashland Tomcats, head coach Chad Tackett. Coach, thanks for joining me, and welcome to the family. We're excited to be carrying Tomcat football games all season long.
Well, I appreciate it. We appreciate you guys and your support, and look forward to working with you guys, and hopefully hopefully you'll fall in love with the Tomcat tradition and Tomcat football.
Well, Tomcat football has been a really strong tradition throughout the tri-state and in Kentucky over the years, and last season was no different. What's changed, you think, from last year's squad to this year? What do you think you've got that's coming back that's going to carry over, and how can you improve on already a pretty good season?
Well, I think our team speed's a little bit better than it was a year ago. We got a couple guys out for track this past spring, and one of our assistant coaches, Harley Eastep, he took over our track program, so he was able to get some of those guys out running. I think that helped our straight line speed tremendously, and then just our weight room work. Hired a young guy last year, Nick Conley, to take over our weight program, and I think it really helped our offensive linemen. Our offensive and defensive lines, night and day different from a year ago as far as strength. So, I think the improvement there up front as far as being a little bit stronger, and then of course our speed with our skill guys, I think really is the biggest difference I see from a year ago.
Now, tomorrow night, it's Raceland, it's Ashland. That's always a big deal. Last year definitely didn't go the way you wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about this year. How long have your guys circled this date on the calendar, wanting to go out there and try to maybe erase that bad taste in their mouth that they had from last year? Because that really wasn't representative of what your team was about.
No, it wasn't. Last year we were still kind of figuring our way through things and finding out who we were. And, frankly, I didn't do a good job last year having us prepared for that game. And, so this year, hopefully we'll be a little bit more prepared. But, I don't necessarily think there's a game that we ever actually circle on our schedule. We always, talk about taking it one week at a time. So, to us, this is week one of hopefully a long season. And we try to approach each week with a business-like mentality and carry ourselves and prepare ourselves the same way each week, So, the opponent names change, but our approach stays the same. And that's kind of our kids have approached it this summer and going into this week.
My guest, the head coach of the Ashland Tomcats, Chad Tackett, his squad making its way to the state semifinals before losing to Christian Academy of Louisville. That's still a pretty good season and trying to build off of that. Do you think that Raceland game really maybe helped motivate the squad last year to make that run? Because, as I mentioned, that game was not indicative of what your football team became. Did that game really maybe refocus a lot of your squad and just help put you on the right track? You hate to say a loss helps you, but it feels like maybe night and day difference after that game.
Yeah, well, I don't know if that game did. I mean, because we ended up going 2-4 in our first 6 ball games. So we came back the next week and won our first game against Boyd, and then we lost a couple more in a row. So we lost a heartbreaker at Hazard 14-7. And it just we kind of kept stumbling, stumping our foot, so to speak, and we would improve on one side of the ball one week and take a step back on the other side, and it kept seesawing like that until probably the West Jessamine game last year. Our offense finally found its stride, and our defense had a really rough night, had a really bad night, and then from that game on, I think we started putting it together a little bit better on both sides of the ball, and then we went on, like I said, a 7-game run, and it just kind of. Things happen, but I don't think it was necessarily one particular game because we had so many struggles early on.
My guest, the head coach of the Ashland Tomcats, Chad Tackett. Now, getting ready for this upcoming season, you scrimmage with Huntington High, so I'm kind of curious how you feel you competed against them. They're the defending state champions in West Virginia, and it looks like you had a really evenly matched squad going up against them.
Well, Coach Steele and I, we go way back, and I've known him for a while, and he's a really good guy, really good man, and a coach I highly respect. And he contacted me about scrimmaging this year, and I knew they were coming off a state championship, but I was trying to find a way to test us before we played Raceland, and really find a team that has some really high quality athletes. And I thought we did that with actually both our scrimmages. Jackson, Ohio was our first scrimmage, and they're always very competitive. They win 10 or 11 ball games every year in Ohio. So we scrimmaged in week one and it did okay. And then I thought we did some good things against Huntington. I think Huntington's speed kind of overwhelmed us at times, but I felt coming out of the scrimmage, we did some really good things, and obviously they exposed some things we needed to improve on this week, and so it was a good scrimmage for us, just from the fact that we were successful against a highly competitive team like them, and then also they showed some weaknesses and some things that we needed to work on.
How do you improve upon those weaknesses with the time you have remaining? How do you try to adjust?
I think just make them, those things you make it a point of emphasis in practice, and everything. Football is not a complicated game. A lot of people like to make it complicated, and it still comes down to fundamentals and blocking and tackling. And I feel like some of the things we did in the scrimmage, came back to blocking and tackling. So we just we point out things on film and try to correct them on film, and then we go down to the field and try to put a little more emphasis on things that we feel like we're lacking on, and try to bring those things up to par.
My guest, the head coach of the Ashland Tomcats, Chad Tackett, his squad getting set for Raceland. Get to play at home. Unlike last year, you don't have to go far for this one, thankfully.
Yeah, we enjoy playing. We feel like we have the best stadium in the state of Kentucky, Putnam Stadium, and I think it might be the only horseshoe stadium in the state, and it's a special place. It's got a lot of tradition and a lot of great players that set foot on that field, and so it's always nice to be at home, and then, of course, have home field advantage. And it's a special place, and our kids love it.
Yeah, last year you had to go to Wheelersburg, so yeah, that's a little different. Yeah, playing Raceland on a neutral field, and it's inconvenient for both for sure, but it's still better that you're home this year. I'm sure that just felt weird, just going to Wheelersburg last year for a Raceland game.
Yeah, it was, and we've always tried to have a spot the ball mentality here. We've always told our kids, if we get to spot the ball in the parking lot, we have to be ready to play, and we feel like being at Ashland, we get everybody's best shot each week. It seems like everybody hates us, and everybody's gunning for us each year. So we try to have that spot the ball mentality and just be ready to play no matter where it's at or what time of day. And that was no different than last year. Unfortunately, like I said, we just weren't ready, and of course the results showed.
My guest, the head coach of the Ashland Tomcats, Chad Tackett. Tomorrow it's going to be his squad taking on Raceland. We've got that game for everyone. If they want to listen to it, they can't go to the game. It's going to be on Cat Sports 93.3 and 1340. And, of course, you've got to put up with another year of Dickie Martin. So that's a job in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd tell you it is, but there's not a bigger Tomcat fan around than Dickie Martin, and he supports Ashland Tomcats and Ashland athletics and Ashland football, and it's always good to have a guy like him on our side, and he's always been real supportive of me, and so I have a lot of respect for Dickie, and I have a lot of desire to do well for him, when I got to Ashland, him and the late Dirk Payne, they were the first two guys to welcome me and, make me feel at home. So that, I always try to make sure I do my best, and especially for guys like Dickie, it means a lot to me.
Well, I'm not going to tell him what you said because I don't want his ego to swell up. I don't want that, but no, Dickie has been great. I've known him for years, so I'm excited as he is to be back together working with him again as your squad gets set for Raceland tomorrow. As you get ready for the game tomorrow, as you look at your roster, who stands out the most to you? Where are you seeing the most growth as this team's getting ready?
Probably the guy under center, our quarterback, LeBron Strader. I mean, he has worked tirelessly since the end of last season. He's down about 50 pounds from last year. He's gotten quicker. His arm's gotten better. His footwork's gotten better. His grasp of Coach Dowdy's offense has gotten better. I've seen a huge improvement in him. He's just really. I think he's night and day different than he was a year ago, and he had a pretty good season a year ago. So probably him. He really stands out to me, and his growth as a quarterback and leader on the football team. And of course, I'd be mistaken not to mention Braxton Jennings and Brandon Houston and Asher Atkins. I mean, those guys contributed highly last year, and they've all those guys have had a great off season. So I expect big things for them, hopefully they'll be big playmakers for us this year.
Well, Coach, we're looking forward to it. Tomcats back on the radio, and it'll be on Cat Sports 93.3 and 1340. And we're excited to be working with you throughout this year and the upcoming, hopefully for a long time to come. We'll have this a fun. I think it's going to be a fun season. I'm looking forward to it.
Let's hope so. That's what we've been working hard for. So,
Coach, good talking.
We'll see what
to you.
happens.
Yeah, good talking to you.
All right, appreciate it.
We'll do it again soon.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
That is the head coach of the Ashland Tomcats, Chad Tackett. Appreciate him joining us on the program as we are getting close to the end of the show here on ESPN 94.1 at AM 930. And don't forget, coming up tomorrow, it's going to be Ashland taking on Raceland. We'll have that game for you on Cat Sports 93.3 and 1340. As we were talking to Coach, the Marshall women's soccer team has scored again. We've got under 4 minutes to go in the contest on the clock, and Marshall putting the game pretty much away. Goal kick by Marshall's Alexis Wogelmuth. That was in about the 85 minute, it looks like. So trying to keep an eye on this one as it is coming to its conclusion. So it looks like unless something completely just crazy happens, Marshall's going to walk away with this one with a 1-0 record. So congratulations to Paul Swann. Hopefully I'm not going to jinx it here with the final minutes left in this one. So we're going to be back tomorrow here for our Friday edition on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. We'll have high school football week 1 in Ohio and Kentucky to talk about, so I'm excited about that. And, of course, our featured game tomorrow will be Ashland playing host to Raceland, and that's going to be 7 o'clock on our sister station, Cat Sports 93.3 and 1340. And then, of course, if you can't go to the game, you can stream it on our website at catsports933.com. You can listen to the game on our app. Go to our website to get that, or take your radio. Do it the old-fashioned way. It's my favorite way to do it. And that's going to do it for this edition. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be back with you tomorrow here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
WRBC Huntington, W227BS Huntington. This is your radio home for Pittsburgh Pirates baseball. ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.